I think I truly fulfill the prophecy that you are your own worst enemy. I wanted, this always happened. Whenever I want to talk about something at 2 a.m. in the morning, there's that one brain cell that goes, hey, but remember that thing that we were thinking about? Maybe you should talk about that tomorrow. And it bothers me. So in order to make it go away, I have to talk about it instead of my original plan, as always. Growing up as a kid, even though if you're not a kid now, you get it. We think that our parents are like Superman. They can solve any problem out there in the world, and they are our safest harbor, our strongest shelter. However, life is fair, and whatever difficulty that we felt like we are facing or we faced, truth is, our parents probably faced 10 times more, harsher. What is the saying? There is this idiom in Chinese. It's like, the amount of salt I've tasted in my life. Wow. Wow. See, it's that one brain cell that's messing up my response system. There was this one Chinese idiom that goes, the amount of salt I've tasted in my life is more than the amount of roads you've walked. So our parents is this wise guru that we always go to when we need advice or when we feel confused, when we feel scared. What was that? But in the end, we're just miniature versions of our parents in a sense. And there will be times, or there are times, or there have already been times when they are faced with a hurdle in their life as well. And they felt exactly the way that we have felt before, not being dramatic. I can't speak for my generation, but I will speak for myself that whenever I'm faced with some difficulties in my life, I like to be alone and sometimes do other things to distract me, yet still being focused on the issue, just hoping that, if I don't see it, the problem is not there. It's a very ostrich, it's called ostrich, right? The bird that's like humongous and cannot fly is that approach, because whenever they see danger, they just bury their head in a hole on the ground. But I feel like that's something that's a lot more acceptable for people who are slightly younger, especially like if you're a kid, then the kid will be like, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to go watch some cartoons. If you're slightly older, it's like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go hang out with my friends, my bros. And if you get to my parents' age, it seems like they lose this privilege of using their ostrich approach because they are not alone anymore. They have a family to tend to and other social responsibility, right? There's work, and then there's that kid you have to take to school, and millions of other things that you have to deal with, like bills. Bills is not gonna wait and consult you and be like, oh, buddy, you feeling good this week? Don't worry. Like, if you're still not feeling fine, how about we delay your bill to the next cycle? No interest. It doesn't work like that. Maybe you'll say, I've never really faced any big problems in my life. My life's been easy peasy. We're doing financially A-okay. I've got everything I want in my life. Well, maybe for the time being, but life is that one brain cells that I mentioned earlier that just want to stir up some poop. And once that clump of poop hits the fans, it's going to get really real, really fast. I would say the biggest hurdle I've had in my life was when I went to the United States. It was definitely a culture shock. I had to relearn everything, kind of just reprogram myself, had to learn a new language, how to interact with various different kinds of people, because I went from a mono, what is it called? like monoracial. That is probably not a word. Please do not quote me. But like in Asia, you're just one race. But when you went to America, it's a multiracial country. And you have to learn how to deal with, first of all, the racism. But luckily mine was not too bad. And, just have to learn to be street smart and all that stuff. And at the time being, I thought it was difficult. I legit wanted to go back. I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. My friends are still there. My clothes is probably still in the freaking apartment in China. I can just, you know what? I'm just going to have my dad wire me some money. And I would be like, peace, America. It's been a pretty good 5 minutes, but I want to go home. I hate it here. But at the time being, it felt like a really big problem. However, looking in retrospect, I'm thinking, you know what? Hey, that wasn't so bad. You survived that. And comparing to whatever you will face later on in life, it's not such a big deal. But that's only something I can say in retrospect. At the moment, it felt like the world was crashing down, and even the strongest can feel this way. Even our parents can feel this way. I think Asian parents have a very good grasp on Elsa's famous saying, conceal, don't feel. Sometimes it's hard to see through them because they put up such a strong front. And I think that goes for other parents as well, depending on whatever kind of parents that you have. But for Asian parents, for most Asian parents, they display affection in a very subtle way. So let alone their bad side. It's like sometimes they would never show us their vulnerable sides, but you can find it. You can find it through a crack. And in my opinion, every parent's nightmare or struggle can be categorized in one of three areas. 1, financial issues. 2, children's future endeavor. 3, somehow, but still very true, their child's love life. Why are you involved in my love life? As for my parents, they've hit a home run and somehow landed in all three areas. They've covered all the grounds. They've had one issues in every single category I've mentioned. I switched my major. I quit the pre-med track. I am dating someone else, currently in a foreign country where they can't see, where they can't touch me. And then last but not least, and in a more so serious tone, my parents too have faced financial problems, but the recent one was the most, I guess you would say, alarming one, to a point where those tiny details of them showing their vulnerable sides were so visible to me, to a point where I realized, our parents are just like us. They need to be comforted as well, but they show off as this strong person that if the world crashed, they would still hold up the roof above our head, that vulnerability is not allowed. And when I realized that, when I saw that, I felt very sad. I felt very sad for them. I wish we could talk to each other like we're equals, but we're not equals. And because of this difference in, is this considered status? But just this difference in, I am your child, you are my parent. We just cannot stand on a level ground, no matter how hard I try. There are definitely instances where I've tried to comfort my parents, and they'll just be like, you don't know about nothing? There's nothing wrong with me. Go mind your own business. Did you finish your homework? Did you finish your homework? You didn't, right? Yeah, go back to your room, finish your homework. Don't try to mind someone else's business. I think about 2 years ago, it's really hard to keep track because after 2020, everything, like all the years just seem to blend together. It's like there's a limbo between 2019 and 2021. But I believe it was towards the end of 2019 and in the beginning of 2020, because of COVID, everything was just crumbling. Like the whole world was crumbling, and specifically in, oh my God, what is it called? I wanted to say job field, but I know that is not correct. The economy. The economy was crashing down. And one thing that was affected very brutally was the oil industry. And my father's business, no, not business, he doesn't own a business. His job was associated with the oil industry. So because of that, they took quite a big hit and he had been laid off. And considering how long this pandemic have lasted, you would think that this was the biggest like financial toll we had in the past 5 years. But the problem was that what I mentioned 2 years ago, he was actually involved in sort of a head-on collision to a point where he could not work. His neck, was his neck dislocated or something was fractured to a point where he had to be home rested? No, just rested at home. He couldn't even turn his neck to look at us. That's how severe it was. And he had all sort of injuries throughout his bodies. So he had to quit. He had to quit for, I think, a span of one-ish year. So for about 1 year, he was jobless. Consequently, it was quite intense at home since we knew that there is this lingering financial issue hovering over our heads and our budgets became a lot tighter. There is just this unspeakable, it's like a Lord Voldemort situation. My mother became the sole breadwinner of the family. Luckily, I was in school. And I paid my own tuition, so they didn't really have to worry about that. All she had to worry about was my sister and then running the family and then taking care of my dad. So, universally, women's work a double shift. And what a double shift is that they work the shift at work and they also work another shift at home. Not only they have to take care of the problems at their job, when they come home, they don't really catch a break. They have to tend everything around the house. They're the glue that pulls the family together, just kind of working behind the scenes. And for her, that period was very, very tough. Obviously, we're all worried about money, yet it's like you can't get mad at my dad. It's not his fault. It's just the situation's fault to put us in this shoe. And we're like, oh, shoot, which way do we walk? How do we walk now? But being the strong woman that she is, she just carried on. And I've noticed that she developed this hobby, which is in China, there are a lot of social media apps where it's kind of like an online karaoke room. You create an ID, you join in, you queue, and when it's your turn, you can sing. And my mom got so addicted to a point. Sometimes after she comes home, she'll go back to her room and just like sing. And for the longest time, I could not understand her obsession. I'm like, why are you spending your days? Okay, maybe not days. No, days. Not the whole day though, but a good chunk of time on this freaking app. And then it seems so important to her. She's like always on her phone. And then I'm like, what is happening? Why are you more addicted to your phone than I am? What's going on? It should be the other way around. I remember one weekend I went home from college and I was just doing the dishes because I'm thinking, when I'm away, she has to do all this by herself. So when I'm home, might as well help her out as much as I can. But the weekend that I come home, I rarely see her because she's in her room. singing. So I'm doing dishes and I'm like pissed. And then dad walks down from his man cave. And then I'm like, all mama does is sing. Like she sings all day, every day. And he was like, let her be. And I was thinking, let her be. Like I come home, I barely see any people here. What am I, like, why are you letting this happen? And he said, let her be. It's her coping mechanism. And at that point was when I realized, oh, she is doing this partially because she likes it. And also the other part of the reason is that when she is singing, at least she doesn't have to worry about everything else that is burning and crashing down in our world. She doesn't really have to think about the situation, the frustrating fact that my dad is jobless, that she has to do everything else 24/7. And within 24/7, there's like a slight gap where she can just forget about everything that is happening and just kind of sing away her worries for a few minutes. I've always thought that was very oblivious to things that are going around in the house. He's kind of like a workaholic, and occasionally he does his own little projects. But at that moment, I was like, okay, that's interesting. I didn't thought of it before. I'm glad that he understands. Well, I didn't tell him that, but in my head, while I was scrubbing them dishes, I was like, at least he is being understanding to her weird habits. But it was kind of cute. It was kind of cute. One time when I came home and I saw a freaking green screen in their room, I was like, what the heck? What is this for? Are you a YouTuber? She's like, oh no, it's for my live streams. I was like, what? You live stream now? It's just on the progression of like, she's gonna become freaking, I don't know where she's heading. But as long as it's a healthy coping mechanism, I'm behind it. And I'm glad she could finally have some me time because she never gets me time. So we try not to disrupt her when she is in La La Land. Now, as for my dad, obviously that period of his life was very tough. He had to recover physically and also think about how to recover financially. And when he was just staying home, he couldn't do much physically. And I've always felt bad for him during that time. So whenever my mom kind of gets upset, I try to calm her down because I understand that in the situations given, there's not much that he can do. All he can do is just rest up. And once he's ready to get back on his feet, then he will, because I know that's just the kind of person that he is. And, you know, our parents are always the Superman and Superwomans in our life. So I thought, you know what? Dad will bounce back. He's fine. He understands. He's not worried at all. But easier said than done, right? As always. And no matter how much wisdom you have, you are still subjected to human emotions because you are human. And at the time, the appropriate emotion to feel is that I'm frustrated. I am a little bit lost. I am concerned. And I didn't really see that directly from my dad, but indirectly, I've seen it. Just like the way that my mom is singing on the karaoke apps. Dad is hanging out in his man cave a little longer than usual. It seems like it was his hiding spot, because usually we don't go into his man cave and be like, yo, what's up, what you doing? We just kind of leave him alone. But he was drinking a lot of beers and occasionally sake. which I'm usually the messenger to buy sake for him because he can't move, he can't leave. And mom is always like, did he? Whenever I text him, hey, I'm coming home this weekend. And first thing mom would text me individually and be like, don't buy him sake. And then my dad would be like, hey, Jules, can you buy me? And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? So I bought it for him because I understood it was part of his coping mechanism. Now, he's not like an alcoholic. He's not like getting drunk left and right, but he would just have this, they have this tiny wine glass. It's kind of cute. And he would like pour himself a cup and he would pour it in the kitchen and then hold that tiny wine glass and walk upstairs. So sometimes when I'm in my room and I'm like, oh, he's going back to his man cave. He's gonna watch movies. And that's what he does. That's his coping mechanism. He drinks while watching movies, like old shows that he has on DVD. He loves to collect DVDs of the movies that he actually like, so he just continuously rewatch them. And one time I think I got up to go to the restroom. It was around maybe 2, 3 a.m. and the TV was still on. So I was like, dang, he's watching a movie this late. So I creeped my way to the man cave and I saw he just fell asleep on the sofa, crossing his arms. And at that moment, I felt like that was probably the most vulnerable state I've seen him in. He's just kind of laying there. And then I wanted to cry. I wanted to cry for him because I know he won't. And those moments are the moments where I wanted to tell them, hey, it's gonna be okay. Everything will work out fine. But I feel like I'm not in the right position to say that. Not, because I don't feel all the pressure that is on their shoulder. At the time, I'm just a college student. I just have to finish my assignments on time, pay my rent, pay my tuitions, and most of the time I'll be A-okay. But for them, everything is more complex. Everything is multiplied. And all I could do is give them a hug when I leave and be like, hey, Papa, take care of yourself while I'm gone. Hey, Mama, take care of yourself when I'm gone. Or I'll tell my sister, I'll be like, hey, don't be a freaking just play nice. Cut them some slack. They're going through a rough patch, okay? She'll be like, lies. Naturally, in those states, we just want to get rid of the problem. We're like, you know what? If he's jobless, then give him a job and the problem will be solved. But most of the time, we are sadly not a part of the solution. And the solution is forthcoming. And I think in those situations, we are most vulnerable because there's nothing that we can do. All we can do is to leave it to time. In time, there will be a solution, but our hearts are impatient and of course, no one wants to be stuck in a difficult situation. We want this problem to be alleviated, yet it takes time and you cannot rush time. When it's someone else's problem, well, not necessarily someone else's problem because there are parents, but when it's someone else's, I've dug myself a hole. When we're not the direct person being tested by life, as much as we want to be a part of solution to someone else's, we have to realize that sometimes we just can't. We are not what they're waiting for. However, as a member of a family, we can always just be there for them so they don't feel alone, so they don't feel like the world does not understand them, because we do. The persons closest to them, we do. Maybe not 100%, but let's aim for, how about 60%? Because I don't know what you do in your other life, so I just want to be 10% more than the other side, so I feel like I know you more. And another thing is that sometimes parents just don't disclose fully of how they're feeling, so we have to play detectives and pick up these tiny clues so we can piece it all together and be like, aha, they're feeling this emotions because of this matter that happened in our lives. But when I think about those moments, I like to remind myself that, hey, our parents have conquered many years in their life, together or apart, and they've figured out a way to handle those emotions. And even though we cannot resolve whatever situation that is going on, it's just another pebble, just a small pebble in their life. And just like always, just like before, they will get over it. However, maybe it's not just a pebble. Maybe it's a freaking rock. Maybe it's a freaking mountain. Maybe it's hard for them to get through it alone, but that's what we are here for. All we have to do and all we can do is to be there, believe in them, and support them so that they are in this safe space. They are in this protective bubble. Maybe they don't have to be strong all the time. Maybe they're allowed to be vulnerable just as we do, but a lot more carelessly, because, we're kids and we're like, la 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 la, I have this problem in my school. My professor won't round my grade, and now I don't have an A. But Mom, I'm always here if you want to talk to me. And Dad, you can come talk to me anytime as well. I've offered this to you before, and my offer still stands. So whenever you want to redeem it, I'm just one call away. Well, maybe one flight away. But I'm here. And on a side note, I just want to mention, even though mental health is not something that most older generations of Asian parents are, I don't want to say aware of, because I feel like they are aware of it. They just don't want to admit it. Even though they don't talk about it a lot, they could still be suffering from forms of mental distress on their own. So it's important to check up on them, give them some love, and to others around you as well. Just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean it's not around. Wow, I think that was the 30th episode of Lactose Intolerant. I was going to talk about what I miss about college, but I guess I miss about my parents more. Don't forget to talk to yours today, and thank you for listening, tuning into another week of Lactose Intolerant. I will see you next time.